Hello, I'm Bruce DePoit. Coming up today on News Talk, Donald Trump gets clobbered in Cleveland. The GOP presidential candidates squaring off in a raucous debate that drew a huge audience and saw no shortage of fireworks. Whose campaign got a boost and who fell flat? And did any of the happy hour debate candidates push themselves to the top tier? We'll ask a special panel, reporters Rebecca Cooper and Kevin Cirilli. Then, millions of people now have seen the John Oliver video on D.C. statehood, arguably the best thing to ever happen to the statehood movement. Will local advocates for the district have the savvy to make something of it? We'll ask Congresswoman Eleanor Holmes North.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DePoit.
We've got such a great lineup for you this Friday. Hello, welcome. It's great to have you with us today. The first GOP debate did not disappoint, at least not from an interest level perspective. Ratings for the Republican skirmish in Cleveland were huge, and the event had plenty of fireworks. But some candidates fared better than others. Our panel weighs in on that in just a moment. First, though, Dana Bash with the highlights of the main bout and the undercard.
And Donald Trump.
Right out of the gate, Donald Trump's presence made this a very different Republican debate. A question about a pledge not to run as an independent.
Raise your hand now if you won't make that pledge tonight. Mr. Trump.
I cannot say I have to respect the person that if it's not me, the person that wins. If I do win and I'm leading by quite a bit, that's what I want to do. I can totally make that pledge. If I'm the nominee, I will pledge I will not run as an independent.
As the GOP crowd booed, Rand Paul, whose outsider status tumbled thanks to Trump, couldn't wait to pounce.
I mean, this is what's wrong. He buys and sells politicians of all stripes. He's already, hey, look, he's already hedging his bet on the Clintons, okay?
Though Trump later lashed out at Paul.
I don't think you heard me. You're having a hard time tonight.
Most of his ire was aimed not at a competitor, but the Fox moderator.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell. I think the big problem this country has is being politically correct. I've been challenged by so many people, and I don't frankly have time for total political correctness. And to be honest with you, this country doesn't have time either. And honestly, Megan, if you don't like it, I'm sorry. I've been very nice to you, although I could probably maybe not be based on the way you have treated me, but I wouldn't do that.
But the biggest fireworks flew over Trump's head between Chris Christie and Rand Paul over personal liberties versus security.
When you're sitting in a subcommittee just blowing hot air about this, you can say things like that.
I don't trust President Obama with our records. I know you gave him a big hug, and if you want to give him a big hug again, go right ahead.
And you know, Senator Paul, the hugs that I remember are the hugs that I gave to the families who lost their people on September 11th.
And all GOP establishment eyes were on Jeb Bush to see if he showed fire in the belly, often lacking in his performances.
I believe that the great majority of people coming here illegally have no other option. They want to provide for their family. But we need to control our border. And there should be a path to earn legal status for those that are here. Not amnesty. Earn legal status.
Bush's former protege, Marco Rubio, showed off his talent for rhetorical flair.
I think God has blessed us. He's blessed the Republican Party with some very good candidates. The Democrats can't even find one.
And Ohio Governor John Kasich had this memorable moment.
I just went to a wedding of a friend of mine who happens to be gay. Because somebody doesn't think the way I do doesn't mean that I can't care about them or I can't love them. So if one of my daughters happened to be that, of course I would love them and I would accept them.
These candidates know a key test for many GOP voters is who can best take on Hillary Clinton.
For the cyber attack with Russia the other day, it's sad to think right now, but probably the Russian and Chinese government know more about Hillary Clinton's email server than do the members of the United States Congress. And that has put our national security at risk.
But the standout moments against Clinton didn't happen at this debate, but hours earlier with the undercards.
Hillary Clinton lies about Benghazi. She lies about emails. She is still defending Planned Parenthood, and she is still her party's front runner.
Dana Bash with a huge wrap-up of a sprawling political evening here in America. Joining us now, our senior national reporter Rebecca Cooper and Kevin Cirilli, reporter for The Hill. It is great to have both of you here. So much to talk about. Rebecca, what are the main takeaways as we get a few hours now downstream from this hothouse moment as 2016 arrives with fireworks blazing? What are the kind of the big takeaways?
So many. You know, it was a big night when Washington today is still talking about the debate and not Jon Stewart's last show. There's plenty to talk about there, but it was a memorable debate. People didn't know what to expect, and Fox did a great job. One of the things I really appreciated is it's painful to me when the debate moderators try to keep the audience from reacting and interjecting their own feelings. I thought it was really a good finger on the pulse of what Republican voters are thinking to see the instant reaction. And what was also interesting were the focus groups afterwards. So I thought lots of memorable moments. We were talking about before, Chris Christie and Rand Paul going at it over NSA spying turned out to be the moment that the most people reacted to in social media. But there were several memorable moments. And we know from debates past that what the interaction in the room is not necessarily meaningful in terms of the nomination, the competition for the nomination, Democratic or Republican, or who ultimately raises his or her hand January 2017. I mean, you can make a mistake. It's sort of an amateur moment, potentially, to play to the room and not be thinking big picture, long, exactly, in terms of the ultimate prize. I mean, I'll be curious to hear what Kevin said, but a lot of people felt like Jeb Bush was flat, that he didn't stand out. I think that was good for Jeb Bush.
Same.
I think
he did what he needed to.
Donald Trump dominate right now. Let Jeb Bush keep slowly trying to find his groove, but just stay out of the limelight. So what did you think, Kevin, of Jeb Bush? This was a moment for him to show fire in the belly and maybe to retake some of the momentum from Donald Trump.
I think former Florida Governor Jeb Bush wanted to emerge after the debate as someone who appeared to be presidential and the adult in the room, if you will, with such a crowded Republican field. But the three main takeaways that I would have is that when you look at Donald Trump, obviously surging to the top of the polls, really tapping into voters' disinterest and feelings of frustration, whether or not he's going to be able to sustain that, I think is the big question mark after last night's debate. But the more moderate candidates, people like former Governor Bush, I think, again, he came to play, he made his point, he criticized Hillary Clinton more than he engaged with any of the other candidates, clearly playing the front-runner card. But then Senator Marco Rubio, I think he's the one that in particular had the most to gain from last night. And of everyone else on the stage, I think it's the one person who wasn't on the stage that has the most to gain overall, and that's Carly Fiorina. See, I think it's important also, too, to just go out there and talk to the voters. We're going to go out today. We'll have it later today on News Channel 8. We're going to talk to Virginia voters. They are going to be key. Virginia, one of the most important swing states in this election. What you felt inside the room, a lot of reporters acknowledged, was very different from outside the room. Frank Luntz did his very important focus groups. We know Frank well. He's a very respected pollster in the Republican Party. He did a focus group immediately following, and it was notable how many of those Republican voters went into the debate audience expecting to support Trump at the end of the day, and that support fell away significantly in that focus group. Former Maryland Governor Bob Ehrlich joins us now. Governor, it's great to have you with us. Thanks very much for your time. I'm eager to get your main takeaways from the debate.
I'm listening to the observations. This is great. There's so much interest in this debate, obviously because of Trump and the size of the field and the diverse personalities. My major observation is, and I know, obviously, most of these candidates pretty well, when you're under pressure in life, Bruce, your real personality comes out. It's you. You can be coached and all that sort of stuff. But in this sort of environment, it's you. And I think, for the most part, that was true last night. I thought Rubio had a particularly good night, by the way. He's a young guy. He looks young, but he speaks very eloquently, and that came through. I think it was with regard to Trump, it was the nature of the factual, the facts with regard to his background, both in forms of questions from the panelists and facts brought up by other candidates. It was the end of the beginning of his momentum. I'm not saying it's the end of his campaign or or he's toast. But I do think, and I think the Luntz's group was pretty reflective of it. That was certainly my observation coming out of it.
I want to give Kevin and Rebecca a chance to pose a question, Governor, but let me just follow up for a second. You served in Congress. You're a governor. America likes governors. America likes executives and problem solvers. And you are a moderate. Do you think that last night was a particularly good night for John Kasich and or Chris Christie?
I think there's, we get so us. It's who did well last night. We love, Americans love competition. We love sports, and we're starting to treat this as a ball game. What you saw last night was nobody really hurt themselves. I think obviously Kasich is a pretty good friend of mine. I was on his committee. Very popular governor of Ohio, and Ohio counts, obviously, in November 2016. Well, what really came through to me was the essential conservatism of the Republican Party, particularly social issues, and most noticeably on abortion, where you had a number of the candidates come out even stronger with regard to certain exceptions, Bruce, life of the mother, rape, incest, common exceptions that even a number of pro-lifers, a significant amount of pro-lifers support these exceptions. But last night appeared very hard stance right down the line.
Let me bring in Rebecca and Kevin, see if they have questions or comments.
I'd love to ask the governor, well, we don't get to compliment them while they're in office, but Governor Ehrlich knows that I feel like he was someone who, when we interviewed him, could take tough, hard-hitting questions and handle them with ease. He was very good at that. So I'm wondering what he thought about which candidates seemed the most adept at handling pointed questions. But the other thing I'm wondering about from him is which candidate he thought last night did the best playing to the base, energizing the base, and which he thought did the best in terms of the moderates that Governor Ehrlich knew how to bring in to win a general election. Two very different groups.
Gov?
Well, all three of you know that the experts, the consultants tell you, don't answer the question, say what you need to say. And for the most part, that occurred. And so my favorite moments in the debate were when that did not occur, when the question was actually answered. And I think the most relevant example here is the spying issue, obviously, between Rand and Christie, where a real philosophical difference between the two, and a philosophical difference, by the way, that plays out not just within the Republican Party, but in our country, was debated for a period of seconds. Now, I like that. As far as base Republican social conservatives, I think Huckabee had a pretty good night.
I saw what you did there, Governor. We have about a minute left. Kevin, did you want to follow up?
Gov, I'm curious. So now it's the morning after. So what do people like Senator Marco Rubio and former Governor Bush, who arguably, again, had solid nights, what did they have to do? And what does someone like Carly Fiorina have to do in the next couple of weeks heading into the next debate?
That's a good question.
I think you're helping Carly. The pundits are really helping her today, saying, hey, she belongs on that stage one. She belongs to the varsity, not to JV. So her performance, and now the punditry supporting her performance, is going to help her greatly. I think, as I said, nobody really hurt themselves on the 10-person stage. I guess the first team there. Carly certainly helped herself. Perry, I've heard different mixed reviews, but nobody hurt themselves. To the extent momentum was stopped last night, I think, as I said earlier, it's most likely Donald Trump, but he's still there and he's not going anywhere.
Always great having you on. Thanks very much. And always great being able to hear your insights. Former Maryland Governor, former Congressman Bob Ehrlich. We'll be talking with you again. Thanks so much.
Take care, everybody.
Talking with Rebecca Cooper, Kevin Cirilli. A break here. Back, though, with more News Talk right after this. Continuing our look back at the first GOP presidential debate. There were two of them, actually, two debates of 2016. Rebecca Cooper and Kevin Cirilli with us this time here on News Talk. A moment ago, guys, Governor Ehrlich, former Maryland Governor Bob Ehrlich, said, I don't think anyone hurt themselves. Maybe he was being diplomatic. As he indicated, he knows just about everyone who was on the stage last night. Maybe that's his actual belief. Is it possible that that odd exchange about where Rosie O'Donnell's name was invoked, and Megyn Kelly, I thought, did a tremendous, they all did a good job. Megyn Kelly did a fantastic job, and there was real substance, and there was an interesting cultural moment in her question.
Well, so explain to people who maybe didn't see the debate.
There was a lot of hooting and laughter in the hall, but I wonder, going back to this notion of was there damage? Did the GOP brand take a hit when suddenly, 5 minutes out of the gate, it seems like, we're calling women slobs and pigs, and it's all about how you look or your weight or whatever. I mean, really, is this the face they want to show?
So Megyn quoted different things he said about women. He says he's only said it about Rosie O'Donnell. I think the record will show. Which she said correctly is not true. That's right. I think the record will show. We know Megyn. Megyn was a reporter here. She's smart, and she is no shrinking violet. She took it well when he then turned it on her and kind of threatened Megyn and said, I've been nice to you so far, Megyn, but maybe I won't now. I thought that was the worst moment because to threaten Megyn during the debate and make it sound like...
If you're Reince Priebus and you're thinking about November 2016 and you're thinking about women, and not just women, a lot of us have mothers who happen to be women. We have sisters. You know what I mean? We have sisters. Right. We have friends. We care about all humanity, not just, I'm a guy, I only care about guys, or some nonsense. I mean, was this something that maybe in the laughter of the moment where the importance might have escaped some people's note?
I think a lot of Mr. Trump's support hinges on the fact that people sort of think that he's winking and nodding when he says a lot of the controversial statements that he makes. But I do think what's going to be interesting to see is whether or not people get tired of it, and if they think it's presidential and, quite frankly, commander-in-chief and polite.
Well, that was what was interesting about the focus group of the people who went in supporting Trump and then at the end of the debate said they could no longer support him pretty definitively. They said it was because he didn't appear presidential. They said they didn't like the way he handled some of the questions. That was interesting to me because I felt like he was pretty pro forma for how he always is, and I didn't think there were any surprises in terms of the way he behaved.
But I do think
it definitely did seem to hurt him in the debate.
His comment about saying political correctness, I think that resonates well with the country. I think he took it one step too far with women, but politically speaking, as far as Reince goes, I mean, it's this tightrope of Republicans having to differentiate themselves from Mr. Trump, who they feel is never going to be the nominee. Already, though, Democrats trying to lump them all together, so it's that tension between all of that.
Well, and to say that, but I will be very curious what Virginia women tell me today when I go out and talk to them that did watch the debate, see what they say, because I went out and spoke to voters immediately after the John McCain comments, and I spoke to Vietnam veterans who still supported Donald Trump. They still liked what he had to say. I thought a very interesting moment last night was when he was bragging about how he's given all this money to different candidates to get things out of them, and they said, what'd you get out of Hillary Clinton? And he said, she came to my wedding. And I thought that was not such a strong answer because, A, you're having to buy friends to come to your wedding, and it certainly doesn't help Hillary Clinton, but I didn't think it was a great answer for Donald Trump either.
Rubio's comment about if this is about who has the best resume with Hillary Clinton wins, what a gift. What a gift to the Clinton campaign, I thought. I mean,
I was surprised he said that.
Resume matters.
That was a little bit of a gap.
Especially when Marco Rubio is the one who doesn't want people holding up the length of experience and time. We haven't talked about Ben Carson, our Maryland candidate. Listen, again, I don't want to oversell the importance of Frank Luntz's focus group, but we do care what the voters think more than what the pundits think. And while he wasn't there through most of the debate, in the end he came on strong, and a lot of them cited Ben Carson and Huckabee as two that they had a more favorable opinion of.
I think Ben Carson, his answers were flat. I think people were really expecting something. I mean, when you have to tell the moderators who did excellent, I was hoping I'd get a little bit more time. I mean, not presidential at all. But in terms of Huckabee, I think he could be the Rick Santorum type of candidate from the last cycle. cycle. I think he galvanizes the base much better than Senator Cruz or in terms of the other candidates.
I respect Kevin, but I'm going to say,
no, it's cool.
When you're known primarily, he's known as an incredible surgeon first, and then as a charismatic and popular and engaging speaker.
Yes.
And he almost had a little attitude like, why do I have to do this? Why do I have to be here?
Don't you think Ben Carson always kind of has that attitude? I like him very much.
I don't think it's winning, though. Whether that's true or not, I don't think that's winning.
I like him as someone to interview and as a candidate, but he was flat, he was kind of non-existent, but he came on so strong at the end, and the two most Googled people last night were Ben Carson and Carly Fiorina, and if you're fighting to stay in the top 10, and you're fighting to pick up your name recognition and have more people know who you are,
BVP.
As soon as he said, I haven't said what the things I've been the only one to do, but let me just mention, separating Siamese twins, people suddenly were like, wait, who is this guy? And that helps.
And
go ahead.
I was just going to say with Carly Fiorina, in terms of playing out how this goes the morning after, if you look at the momentum that she has and the narrative, as we all in pundit world, which I hate saying, but when you look at in terms of where this debate is moving, here's a candidate who was not on the main stage, who won hands and away the happy hour debate, as she calls it.
Which was not the most exciting debate. I watched all of happy hour. It would have been better at a happy hour bar. It was boring but substantive. There was a lot of substance, but she came out of the gate taking on Trump and everyone else.
She'll be on arguably the next main stage, and so you have this beginning of a Fiorina.
And a Virginia resident, we should point out, Carly Fiorina. I don't think a lot of people realize she is now a Virginia resident.
And I'm really glad, and not surprised that you keep bringing us back to what really matters, what really is important in all this long term. Only a handful of states are in play once we get past the convention.
And Ohio was one of them, and that's where John Kasich had a good night last night.
Real quick, we have another guest on the phone. Kevin, the next set of polls are going to be fascinating. Do they show Donald Trump holding and or maintaining, growing his lead? Does he slip a little? Does he slip a lot?
I think that I hate predicting polls because I think especially they're all over the place, especially in such a crowded field. But I think the large takeaways are that the top tier candidates like Senator Rubio, Governor Bush, to some extent Kasich, they all did what they needed to do. And I think who's going to rise are people like Carly Fiorina. I think Trump, and this is where I would disagree with the governor just a little bit, is that I think Trump's supporters are in it for the long haul. He taps into a key base. But I think some of his more fluid supporters are going to start to break away.
But what Governor Ehrlich said is his momentum might have ended, and I think that may be accurate. We'll see, though. We all thought it might have ended after the McCain comments, and it clearly didn't.
Joining us now, veteran political strategist and Reagan biographer Craig Shirley. Craig, it's great to have you on. We don't have a ton of time, but you're someone whose views and analysis I admire. I'm eager to get your thoughts on the debate.
Well, I was enjoying listening to the conversation.
Thank you.
I think in a lot of ways it was a status quo debate with the exception of Carly Fiorina. You know, the conventional wisdom is she broke out of the pack, and I think that conventional wisdom for once is correct. I think that also that Lindsey Graham probably hurt himself. But I would not expect to see a large shift in the polling right now. As far as winners or losers, Donald Trump probably broke even, lost a little bit. Jeb Bush, I think, was tentative and hesitant. But other than that, I think it was pretty much a status quo. It was a great show, and I think that, I think the Republicans have a lot to be excited about, quite frankly, because there was a lot of talent on both stages last night.
Do you expect the next set of polls to show Donald Trump, who has surprised many with the staying power, the enduring nature of his popularity? Again, it's early, but do you expect, let me pose to you the question I just posed to Kevin, does the next set of polls show Trump maintaining and or growing his lead? Does he slip a little? Does he slip a lot?
Well, anything I would say would be speculative. My guess is, I think Kevin was right, is that his people are in it for the long term, and they saw a man last night who was taking on the establishment of both political parties, and they are untethered really to the Republican Party. They tend to be obviously more conservative than Republican, and so he's gonna in for the long term, and I think they are too.
If you were a network producer, if you're at CNN or one of the other networks, and you're planning a debate a subsequent debate? What do you do to build on what I thought was generally a good job, not a great job? And I want to ask you guys a question in a second. But what do you do to make this meaningful, as meaningful as possible for primary voters between now and the conventions, and then as we get into the general, meaningful for the electorate?
Well, let me say is that I was wrong. I thought that the Fox format was not going to work. It did work, although, you know, if you're at the earlier debate, you probably felt a little bit insecure about things. What I would do going forward, though, is to draw straws and do 3 different debates, do 3 1-hour, 90-minute debates. You've got 17 candidates, so you can easily split them into 3 different groups and just draw straws or do a bracket system where the high goes against the low and let the chips fall where they may.
Before we let you go, let me see if my friends Rebecca and Kevin have an urgent question they want to fire.
Well, Craig knows this field well. Craig, who do you want to see taking on each other? I would love to see Carly Fiorina taking on Donald Trump. They've been arguing back and forth about who knows more about business. Who would you most like to see go mano a mano?
I think Trump's been arguing with everybody. I think that would be a fascinating debate. I think Rand Paul and a reprise of Rand Paul and Chris Christie, because they were talking about the essential split in the Republican Party right now. Chris Christie was arguing, some would say justifiably, for a security state. Rand Paul was arguing for, some would say justifiably, a freedom state. And really, that is the nub of the issue right now that splits the Republican Party. Is it kind of Reagan-esque freedom, or is it more Bush security? And that is yet to be decided.
Craig Shirley, so good to have you with us. Thank you very, very much for your time today.
Thanks.
Fox had a big night. I have to say, them letting the candidates cut in on each other really worked. And sometimes that can evolve into a free-for-all and you lose all control. It worked.
We only have a couple seconds left. Kevin, let me sort of pivot on that. I sat through the first hour, and I thought, this isn't a debate. I mean, it was slickly produced with seasoned, top-tier journalists who were in command. But was it a debate? It was really a simultaneous answering of questions from a panel to a bunch of candidates. The interplay was not all that much in terms of quantity, and when it happened, they seemed to shut it down.
Great point, but I think it was an introduction. It's the first debate. There was a shot, though, where they pulled back, and I thought to myself, and you see hundreds of people packed in the stadium, 10 candidates on stage, and I just thought, this is like historic. I mean, when you think of how you had candidates in the early days of our country, going trains across the country, it reminded me of that. It's a perfect contrast about what's about to happen on the Democratic side, where there's essentially a coronation taking place. I interviewed Governor O'Malley just earlier this week and had lunch with him in Iowa. He criticized the DNC officials for essentially tilting the field in favor of Hillary Clinton. That is not the case of what's happening in the Republican front.
I think for as many candidates as they had, they did a great job, especially if you saw the very beginning of the debate. It was really awkward as Megan and Chris Wallace and Brett were trying to entertain the crowd, and it started off very awkwardly, and Twitter was erupting with "this is so awkward." So we were all a little worried, and it felt like the Miss USA pageant that Donald Trump is a part of more than anything else. But then I thought they did a great job given the challenges they had.
Rebecca Cooper, Kevin Cirilli, we could do the hour. Thank you very much for your time. Great having you here, as always. We'll check in with David Lucas, get you caught up on the hour's top stories straight ahead, the weekend forecast too, and then can statehood advocates use a funny video to advance their cause?